And one of the important classes of platyhelminthes, the class Trematoda. So trematode parasites are really important, and they're interesting because of their life cycle and how their parasitic nature actually affects animal behavior. So this image here is kind of the general life cycle of a trematode parasite. And what I want you guys to take away from this is that there are two types of hosts for these parasites. Right? There are intermediate hosts, and then there are definitive hosts. So sexual reproduction happens in the definitive host, and it's usually a bird, sometimes it's a mammal, sometimes it's a fish, but it's often birds. So these trematode parasites, sexual reproduction happens here, eggs get shed out in the feces, they hatch at these Mericeridium, and then those Mericeridium create this part of the life cycle that infects the first intermediate host, which is often a gastropod, often a snail. These snails, the host undergoes a different part of its life cycle, makes the Sacchariae, which then infect the second intermediate host, which is often a gastropod, can be a fish as well. These trematodes then encyst, making these cysts inside the gastropod or the fish, and then this gastropod or fish is then eaten by the definitive host, often a bird, where sexual reproduction happens and starts that cycle over again. Importantly, when these trematodes infect the intermediate hosts, these intermediate hosts are often neutered, so it actually affects their sexual reproduction. And one of the coolest things is that when this second intermediate host is a fish, that parasite infection, those cysts, often affect the fish's behavior. So there's something called whirling killifish. So killifish are these little coastal fish. They're small. They're about like that. And they're one of the favorite prey for big herons and egrets. And what happens when the trematode infection gets really bad in these killifish is it essentially drives them crazy. So they'll swim up to the surface and they'll swim around in a circle at the surface. You know, it's going to be tough to avoid a predator like that. So the bird walks up, picks off the heavily infected fish, ingests those cysts, and then the trematode can undergo sexual reproduction inside the bird. So it's a really ingenious way of helping complete its life cycle, essentially by driving the host crazy. Right? So intermediate hosts versus definitive hosts. All right, the second group of worms I wanted to talk about, there are lots of others, but I just wanted to point these guys out. The phylum Nemertea, or Nemertians. These guys are ribbon worms. They're mostly carnivorous, and they can be giant, right? Up to 10 meters. So a 30-foot worm, pretty freaking scary. Especially when these guys actually produce these crazy feeding mechanisms. So this is the business end of the worms. This is its head. Here's its mouth right here. This structure here is called the Wrinkle Cell. It's essentially just a fluid-filled compartment. But inside that is this proboscis. It can evert, and on the end of it is a stylet, which is essentially a hypodermic needle. And these Nemertians produce toxins that they inject into their prey via these hypodermic needles, right? So it squeezes that Wrinkle Cell, pops out that proboscis, and then injects whatever it's going to eat with that toxin. And they move through the water and through the sediments via cilia. They've got complex, blah, blah, blah. But this proboscis and this stylet is really the cool point. And these guys are super disgusting. And I found a really good video. Today's going to be lots of videos.